Hey there, and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete, and today we complete another episode of Rimworld Odyssey with the spacefaring Stars of Som. Last time we left off after taming and naming a second Thrumbo in Felix, and we went on a search for plasteel, finally allowing us to build a shuttle. We also grabbed some goodies from an underground drug stockpile, and to start things off today, we want to turn our attention to this side right here. These two travelers wandered in at the very end of the last episode, and as you can see, they promptly met their demise at the hands of some insects. We will soon assemble a team to retrieve their goods. First of all though, after a beautiful aurora, now it's time for an eclipse, so it looks like we'll need to rely on our wind turbines for a little while longer. Brent then finishes making an assault rifle. We can now equip Fabian with it, and with that I think we're good to go. We're sending out a relatively large team here, essentially anyone who can hold a gun, and Brian also brings our two Thrumbos as well as Rhino Ulfgar along. You might also be wondering why we're not actually attacking the nest next to the fallen traders, and that's because of the behavior that bugs on these types of maps tend to show. I've seen it happen multiple times by now that attacking one nest instantly turns several others hostile too, and if those other nests are closer to your base than the one that you're attacking, then you might be in for some trouble, as of course all of the fighters are currently out fighting. That is the simple reason why I decided to attack the nest closest to our gravship first, and even then you can see it here, our alpha beaver locksins got caught up in the insect assault. Much worse things could have happened though if we had rushed straight for the loot. Clearing out the insects next to the fallen traders then is actually a quick affair, and so, battered and bruised, we can now help ourselves to some valuables, including the very interesting tech print for jump packs. Back on board of the Hisa, meanwhile, Locksins receives medical attention from Saber. Thankfully, our Alpha Beaver did not suffer any permanent injuries. Night Owl Kyler then goes on an insane rambling mental break. Apart from that though, we're doing pretty well for ourselves. The same cannot necessarily be said for Thrumbo Felix. As you can see, the list of injuries here is lengthy, and some of it is even from friendly fire. The situation with Ulfgar out here is even worse. The only injuries we have to report on our Rhino here are gunshot wounds. Nonetheless, in the grand scheme of things, I consider that a fair price to pay for the tech print we just acquired, a tech print that Fabian has just applied. And if we now wait for just a few seconds longer here, then we can also immediately start working on jump packs as the Pole's charged munitions project has been completed. So we might equip our pawns with charge rifles soon. Jump packs would be a handy accessory though, especially once our fighters start roaming around in those heavy suits of armor. Now, as you can see, early on the next morning we are already breaking up our wind turbines. It is time to leave in search of a new adventure. On that note, thank you all so much for all of your comments on the last episode. I think we are all more or less in agreement that terraforming an asteroid and creating a space zoo could be a viable goal for this playthrough, and in an effort to reach that goal, let us go after another gravcore. This one is located underground and in the desert though. Considering all of our animals, perhaps not a wise choice to land there, so instead let's opt for the nearby lava field, a biome that we're now going to explore for the very first time. So here we are then, welcome to the lava fields. The reason for the name becomes instantly obvious, I think. Now, one very important thing here, these lava lakes can sporadically overflow, and despite what it looks like, it will not just stay confined on the grey lava rock around it. So, after leading our animals out to graze, we should also quickly work on mining some rock to make non-flammable walls, and we are also fencing in the area so that our animals can roam freely. While mining those rocks, a roof collapse then crushes Saber. Thankfully though, she manages to escape unscathed. In the evening, we fence off the southern edge of our landing site. As a result, we can now remove the caravan hitching spot here, and so, with a small temporary base established, it's time to set our sights on the gravcore. So, early on the next morning, we load up our shuttle Black Shadow. We're taking pretty much everyone in the colony who can fight on this trip, and then we'll have them drop right into the center of the desert cave system. As the shuttle lands just 2 map tiles further, it also becomes quickly apparent what we're going to deal with in these caves. The cave entrance here is being patrolled by gnarly insects. However, the real fighting will take place down below, so we wait patiently for a gap to emerge and then climb into the cave. Down below, the cave system then reminiscent of the pit gate from the Anomaly DLC, a large underground area, and instead of flesh mass we are faced with burrow walls, and of course there are more insects down here too, but maybe we can avoid unnecessary fighting as we now shoot and dig our way through the cave searching for the gravcore. The first few tunnels remain empty until we find a small boom shroom colony, but let's stay focused on the task for now. A small pile of human corpses foreshadows more enemies up ahead. The next wall breakthrough here then also uncovers a larger tunnel area. So far though, no insects and no gravcore in sight. We advance further towards the northwestern corner of the map and suddenly we notice something. Behind a nearby wall, Alex hears muffled pulsations accompanied by a chittering noise, and the game explicitly warns us that something massive lies beyond. Now, with a fight seemingly unavoidable, let's clear up some of the terrain here to give us a slight edge. Against insects, cover and long winded paths won't really help us much. Instead, a clear open line of fire seems much more beneficial. Eventually then, we target a wall at the back of the cave, and there she is. We have discovered a Hive Queen. Unfortunately, this massive insect birth mother is not alone, and she and her children are guarding the gravcore, so we'll need to find some way of luring them away or taking them down. Before we do any of that, however, let's retreat and deal with the insects in the middle of the cave first. Attacking the Hive Queen could very well alert these guys to our presence too, and they're located so close to the exit that they could make an escape difficult, so even though there is a small chance that we could have avoided fighting them altogether, that is exactly what we're now going to do. A volley from Nailgraph's shotgun quickly alerts them to our presence, and what comes next is a good old-fashioned brawl. Heavily armored, Saber and Alex are holding the line, while the rest of our pawns stand in the tunnel behind them and fire away. I think this also nicely illustrates something I mentioned at the end of the last episode. Despite our technological advancements and our relatively high colony wealth, when it comes to combat, we are still lacking a bit, so even a standard fight against a small group of insects here is not without its risks. Nonetheless, the bugs are all down now, and we only take a quick break near the cave exit here until the fighting continues. Saber bandages the wounds of Alex and herself, and while a psychic soothe makes the men that remained on board of the Heezer very happy, we now send out 17-year-old Deborah to go hunting. I'm sure it will be a bit hard to see in the eventual recording that goes up to YouTube. The plan here is essentially to wait until the Hive Queen moves a bit further away from the nest, so that we can only shoot her without attracting the attention of other insects. Weirdly enough, targeting any of the other bugs would turn the entire hive hostile. Shooting the queen, meanwhile, only gets her to move. Deborah also has perfect timing to dodge the Hive Queen's spit attack here, and just like that, we now find ourselves in a very similar combat formation as before. This time, however, our enemy is a much more formidable foe. The Hive Queen's melee attacks in particular are very dangerous, capable of tearing off limbs in just a few swift hits. On the plus side, she is not the most heavily armored foe, and so actually goes down fairly quickly here, admittedly after sustaining a decent number of injuries. Now, unexpectedly, the fact that she went down but did not die also presents us with an interesting opportunity, as we can now carry the downed Hive Queen back to the surface. Making sure not to attract the attention of the nearby bugs, which are thankfully sleeping, we now move back to the shuttle, load both a heavily injured Alex and the Hive Queen inside, and send both of them back to the Heezer's landing site. Now at this point, you might already be able to see where this is going. The plan is of course to try and tame the Hive Queen. To that end, we first of all need to wall her in, as she will remain permanently hostile, and we also want to inflict just a bit more damage. A few punches from young cat here should ensure that she does not wake up before it's time to. While Brian constructs a prison from durable vaxstone, Furion administers some first aid. Slowly but steadily, our young high maid manages to stop the bleeding, but unfortunately we only do this to be able to dish out more punishment. Essentially, I'm hoping to be able to tame her the same way we were able to tame terror kittens a while ago. With each injury tended to, there is a small chance of forming a bond, so the more injuries there are, the higher that chance. For the time being, though, it looks like we have bigger concerns. A mech cluster is landing right next to where our small band of cave adventurers is hanging out. Now, it doesn't actually have any mechs in it, but still, this is a threat that's a bit too close for comfort. So once more, we launch our shuttle Black Shadow. Brent and Fabian can remain here and take care of some mining. Everyone else will evacuate. That is, unless they suffer a mental break and now find themselves trapped between a rock and a hard place, or in our case, insects and mechanoids. Still, we move out whoever we can. Obviously, we still need to go after that gravcore, but with Saber mentally broken and Alex heavily injured, we simply have no frontliners to tank the damage at this point, and our animals can sadly not climb down into the cave system. Otherwise, our Thrumbos would already be down there wreaking havoc. All of a sudden then, a taming inspiration for Brian changes our plans regarding the Hive Queen. The only obstacle remaining is his animal handling skill of 11. With a wildness rating of 99%, just like the Alpha Thrumbo, a skill level of at least 14 would be required. But we have one more sentience catalyst lying around, and this seems like the perfect time to use it. Now the minimum handling skill has been reduced to only 7, and we only need to wait until the Hive Queen is no longer unconscious. Back out in the desert, meanwhile, we dig a small emergency tunnel, although we don't dig all the way through just yet, otherwise Saber might just wander off into the insects. We also take note of the mech cluster's countdown activator, leaving us only with 14 hours until it goes off. However, after taking another closer look at it, I think we should be able to handle this thing entirely risk-free. Since the auto-charge turret here cannot fire within a range of 4 tiles, we can sneak up on it and take it out without risking return fire. And the mech assemblers here also do not spawn their mechs instantly. And finally, the auto-mortar also has a warm-up time of around 2 minutes. All in all, this gives us plenty of time to deal with all threats in the area before any of them can become a problem for Brent and Fabian. Ultimately, this mech cluster can even be viewed as a net positive for our colony, not only because of a sizable yield in materials, but also because there is an unstable power cell and a mech high shield among the devices, both of which are incredibly useful. Back out in the lava fields, then we go hunting, and we hunt lava snails, one of the unique types of animals in this biome, and in my opinion the perfect prey. I'll explain why in just a second. For now we're interrupted by a quest. We are being asked here to destroy a camp of 16 Itakin, and while the rewards don't necessarily intrigue me all that much, I'll leave this one up to you. Considering the turrets we have mounted on the Hisa, this should be doable. We then continue the hunt. The lava snails are particularly great prey because they move so slowly, and they also yield an unexpectedly high amount of meat. They also have an incredibly low hunger rate, which makes them perfect for taming. Their only downside perhaps is that they require constant temperatures above 0 degrees Celsius. Obviously, coming from the lava fields, they like it hot. Just as we catch up with our crew in the desert, then we are informed of a solar flare striking the Hisa, which now unfortunately forces us to harvest our psychoid plants just a little bit early. If we were to wait out the solar flare, they would most likely not survive. 2 hours later then, the event already passes, but it is what it is. With enough psychoid for the next few weeks, we switch to rice at this point, and a few hours later we take note of the fact that Alex has finally made a full recovery. While waiting for reinforcements, Brent and Fabian have begun mining out a small silver vein, and back home we can take note of the fact that our Hive Queen is no longer unconscious, but, and this is absolutely crucial for our plan to work, she also does not seem to mind her confinement. In the evening then, Saber comes out of her psychotic state, and with that I think it's almost time. Just a short while later, the Black Shadow drops down once more, this time carrying a group that is hopefully capable of dealing with the remaining insects. With a nighttime rain setting in and the insects fast asleep, we also don't really need to wait to enter the cave. Down below then, we fire a few shots and that immediately gets us noticed. The boom shrooms, by the way, have gone up in flames after being exposed to too much light. Now, unfortunately, we have a locust catching up to Deborah here before she can reach her combat position. Thankfully, she manages to escape though and does not get swarmed, and so we can now once again watch the carnage unfold as the rest of the insects close in. I know I've said it before in the last episode, but I really feel like this gravship crew would be the perfect use case for a mechanitor. 1 or 2 heavy mechs in the front here and this fight would be so much easier. Sadly, we have not yet found a mech link, but once we do, I think Brent, our genie crafter, would be the perfect candidate, and for this fight at least we do manage without the help of any robots, and so the path towards the gravcore is now clear. Our adventurers also eagerly munch on the delicious insect jelly. Eventually though, everything is collected and we head back for the exit. Up on the surface then, the insects are still sleeping, so we can safely sneak away. Our shuttle is loaded with the loot from Cave and Mech Cluster, and the first batch of adventurers arrives back home on board of the Heezer just a few short moments later. An hour passes and Brian and the shuttle return to pick up Nelgraf, Kyla and Fabian. Another hour later and they too return home, and with that the cave map is now also officially abandoned. Now that everyone has left, we will not be able to return there, but we also grabbed everything of value. At this point, the only item left on our to-do list is to tame the Hive Queen. However, she is still hostile, so while we tame, someone else needs to tank, and that means we will most likely also deal some damage to her in return. In her current state, if we deal too much, she could die or fall unconscious again, so I think it would be wise until she has recovered enough to take a few hits. And we spent that time being productive around the gravship. Everyone has something to do while we wait for the sun to set across the lava fields, and that includes the research labs, where we now unlock jump packs. Considering that a steady supply of chem fuel has not been an issue for a few episodes now, we should soon make some. For our next project then, let's unlock crypto sleep caskets. Not necessarily for our pawns, but they could be of interest for our space zoo project, as animals can also be put in there in emergency situations. On the next morning, the first batch of rice is already ripe for the harvest. Since we then also have enough for the time being, I think we'll use the basins at the top here to grow heel root next. The ones at the bottom will likely be switched to cotton for the production of flag vests. We also witnessed the birth of a new boomalope, the only animal we are not continuously slaughtering. We'll name this one Decapitated, after the Patreon supporter of the same name, and then our attention is taken by a quest. A 28-year-old space marine is running from 2 factions at once, and now wishes to join the safety of our gravship crew. Considering that we could just fly away from the raid that is supposed to follow him, I see little risk with this quest, but before we make a decision on the matter, let's take care of that Hive Queen. We now officially target her for taming, which prompts Brian to grab some kibble from our kitchen, and we also have our rhino Ulfgar join the party, currently with Reno as its master. This now allows us to do the following. With enough kibble for the taming attempt in his inventory, Brian can open the door. Reno puts Ulfgar in attack mode, which immediately prompts a fight between Rhino and Hive Queen, and while Ulfgar now tanks for us and hopefully does not do too much damage itself, Brian sneakily joins the carnage to tame the Hive Queen. Now, as you can see, the entire process takes an uncomfortably long amount of time. The 2 animals are also landing shot after shot on each other, so let's hope this ends before either one of them goes down. And there we are, the Hive Queen has been tamed, thanks to Brian's lucky inspiration. We will now name her Blubber, once again after a Patreon supporter, a very fitting name I think. Unfortunately, Blubber and Ulfgar can't really separate until one of them goes down. Unsurprisingly, it is the rhinoceros, but Furion is quick to help out, and so Ulfgar should survive. So, we now have an Alpha Thrumbo and a Hive Queen in our ranks. I think these are by far the 2 toughest animals currently in the game, and with that, we are now one step closer to a complete animal collection. Next time then, we'll make a decision regarding the 2 quests we received today. Please let me know what you would do in both instances. Like I said, I think we should be able to handle them both, but whether or not that's actually worth it, that is an entirely different question. For today then, let's make the cut at this point. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course also go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.